I keep hearing all of this talk about like ban grief, ban bowmasters, grief too good for the format. So let's test it. Let's see how good the grief reanimate scam package really is. Let's fill the rest of our deck with questionable card choices and see if this card can actually carry us to victory. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU, for another Legacy video, and today we're going to be playing with a mono black deck, but we're going to kind of crank the spice dial up to 11 for this one. I've seen a decent number of YouTube comments, Twitter comments, replies to the podcast episode that I posted, still thinking that grief is very oppressive. So, let's try to test it. How oppressive is it? Really, how good is it? Is this card so good that it doesn't matter your ability level with it? Does it not matter what the supporting cast is? If you have Grief, Troll of Khazad-dum, and Reanimate in your deck, are you just going to win games no matter what? So obviously, we're going to do the well-tested sort of legacy heuristics test of, can I still win with Vampire Nighthawk if I do this? So for those of you who haven't been following my content for a while, back in, I think it was right around Halloween, so October, tail end of October, beginning of November, I played a league with a bunch of vampire cards shoved in my deck list alongside the One Ring. And the general idea was to see, how busted is the One Ring? And at the time, the answer was, yeah, this card's kind of fucked up and is pretty busted. I think since then, people have gotten used to the play patterns around the One Ring, and it's largely stabilized in the homes where it really belongs, instead of just getting shoved into every deck like it initially was. Well, now Grief and Orcish Bowmasters are kind of at the point where you just shove them in any deck, and it works. So let's take a look at what we're going to test today. So I want you to imagine that you are a super casual legacy player. You have, a random legacy FNM, a random small legacy event that your store normally doesn't host. And you just want to play with a bunch of your favorite cards. You want to play your lifelink vampire deck. Can you just shove the Grief Reanimate scam package into that, and will your deck be good? That's literally what I'm going to test to see today. So this whole Lashwrithe to make my lifelinkers huge thing is something that I've had together. I have a casual deck sitting in my closet. I've had it together since literally when I started playing Magic. And could I take that, put in a couple of updated threats that weren't in it when I originally printed it, and add the scam package? And to kind of ramp up the challenge level, I'm straight up just going to play 20 swamps. I don't own any fetch lands. I don't own any surveil lands. I don't own any good cards like Take Numa. Okay, that one was a joke. That card sucks. But really, how busted is this actually going to feel? So we're not going to play Bowmasters. We're not going to play fetch lands. No dual lands. No splash colors. No fetches for surveil lands. How busted is just throwing this into literally a sub-format power level deck? No source of card advantage, just vampires hanging out, having a good time, drinking some blood. Not even Cavernous Souls. The sideboard is just filled with normal mono black stuff that you would see. Is it actually busted? Let's go and find out. And if you enjoy what you see today on screen and you want to wreak havoc on your local metagame, please consider checking out toamagic.com. That's Tales of Adventure. They're an absolutely awesome store. They support creators like myself, and they have awesome prices, free shipping, and fast delivery. Use promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your order. And folks, let's battle. All right. I have turn 1 Dauthi Voidwalker into turn 2 Dauthi Voidwalker backed by a Snuff Out against some Yorion deck. We'll keep this. All right, George Michael. Or no, it's not George Michael. I've messed up this joke. We'll mulligan the starting banter. All right. Good luck, friend. All right, is it actually D&T? Looks like D&T. Smells like D&T. But it's actually 2% of the metagame right now. So I'm not going to be fully sold it's D&T until I see a little bit more here. Okay, It does seem an awful lot like D&T. Sort of humorously, I could snuff out this Stoneforge Mystic, cast my own Stoneforge Mystic, and get a Lashwrithe. And that's, like, not an unreasonable thing to do. But I think the 3-turn clock is just too good here. Please sacrifice a non-token creature. We're looking to just strand that Batterskull in hand. Or it doesn't really matter. I imagine this is going to be like a Skyclave Apparition. That's a card that makes a lot of sense to play here. Hey, there it is. My opponent takes out one Douthie Voidwalker. And so that I can attack with this token, we'll go ahead and just snuff out right now. We are looking to race this Batterskull Germ getting into play. Now, a Flicker Wisp or other similar creature could be a removal spell for my illusion here. I think we're just doing this. A little rough if my opponent has something like a Solitude, but I think if they had something like a Solitude, it already would have happened. Fuck me, I guess. We'll get them next turn. We are a turn away from Batterskull happening. No. That's a little rough here. We'll continue to bash in. I need to stay aggressive here. Opponent not willing to trade. We'll play a Vampire. Oh, there's a pause. Maybe they don't have... Oh, no, they do have it. Shit. That's gonna be rough. I think I need to hold that. And my attacks don't make sense right now. We're probably going to start running into this portion of the game where, like, the Yorion starts to become threatening. We were looking to end the game before this. That's fine. Oh, I've scared my opponent. They're not going in with Batterskull. They maybe don't need to. All right, they're going for another Stoneforge Mystic, which is reasonable. If my opponent is not going to attack because they think I have something, I'm just going to hold this. All right, well, now I'll cycle one to make the land drop so that if I draw another, I can play it. But I think the tide has turned here. Stoneforge Mystic, get Jitte, cast Jitte. If there's another land drop, Jitte could get equipped this turn. At which point I don't think I can win anymore. Lion Sash is great too. That just shuts off the whole Reanimator side of the deck. All right, no attacks. I'm not entirely sure what the rationale is. I can make my opponent sacrifice the Batterskull Germ token specifically, but it's not like my attacks are great from there. I don't think I beat the Batterskull Germ bounce thing that's happening here. I think I'm going to go ahead and respect my time and concede. I would like some additional removal. We very, very narrowly aggroed my opponent out here. So the creatures with evasion are actively good. I think that means that Gifted Aetherborn is kind of medium. So let's get rid of that, become a little more removal dense, and keep all the creatures that have evasion. I could, like, do some of this sort of stuff to attack the hand for Stoneforge Mystic specifically. But this is in theory what the Griefs are for. This hand has no starting mana source. Easy mulligan. This is not the way that I want to win a game of Magic versus this deck. Like, I want to be the aggressor because I think they win the long game because of the Yorion card advantage. So, like, I can keep a hand that has triple removal spell, but I think I'm supposed to get on board early. I think an aggressive 5-card hand is going to be better than this on average. This isn't it, but I'm not going to mulligan deeper than this here. This is probably about as powerful as the previous hand because I still just do have the possibility of grabbing a Grief or a Troll and turning this from a mediocre hand into a good hand. Douthie Voidwalker is quite good. I think I just need to remove this before it is protected by another body. Please sacrifice a non-token creature. But a follow-up like Stoneforge Mystic here is pretty rough. That's fine. Like, I can just play aggressive creatures into that. My Snuff Outs and Friends will cost a little bit more mana. I don't think that's that big of a deal. Yeah, that's fine. This isn't actually castable right now due to Thalia. I can reanimate a Mother of Runes if that's a thing that I would like to do. I'm not overly excited about the prospects of doing that. Yeah, that's fine. That gives me, I think, something better to do. I'm just going to go ahead and get my Douthie back and try to continue to stay aggressive. I don't really want to reanimate my opponent's Mother of Runes and then just like have my opponent Flicker Wisp it and blow me out. Sure, that's not a big deal. 14 and Yorion to hand. Opponent probably has a lot of lands then. Would kind of be my guess here. Let's be aggressive here. Menace and Lifelink? I think so. Either one of these 3 bodies walls the Thalia. Are we Yorioning? No, it's far worse. Sheoldred's Edict is not going to get through these sort of secondary bodies in a meaningful way. Stoneforge Mystic seems good. Solitude seems good. Solitude maybe slightly less good. I can reanimate it. Yeah. Oh, but they're going to port me. No, they're going to hold up something for Thalia. Sure. Send them. Okay, cool. We get in there. I scale up my creature. Do I just Edict to take out like Thalia or Recruiter so that Yorion becomes worse? I don't think so. I think it's pretty close, but I think I just put extra bodies onto the board. And I think I respect Sheoldred's Edict. Okay. Specifically as a way to get rid of a Germ token. If my opponent gets like a Batter Skull off this Stoneforge Mystic, I'm fine taking this damage. The Battle of Bywater. What a blowout. And then Stoneforge afterwards. I don't think I'm coming back from the Battle at Bywater. Solitude has a Void counter. I can't double spell here, which is the biggest problem. Like, I can stop the Caldra in the short term, but then, like, Yorion just beats me. I can't aggro through, like, Yorion, Recruiter, get Solitude. I think my evaluation was correct, that if I'm going to win this matchup, I need to win it in the early game, because I'm just not beating the late game card advantage here. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists, and they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out. All right. We have an opening hand here that can like do a grief thing without a reanimate. Versus random Flooded Strand. I don't think I'm just gonna fire off grief immediately on turn 1. I think I'm gonna wait a turn or so. I just draw more lands, and this is just like some slower control deck from the look of things. I maybe just wait and try to hard cast them. Or, you know, we can do not that. So let's grief. The Edict is probably going to be the worst card in my hand in the short to medium term here. Feels like we're playing like a blue-white X control deck list of some kind. Sure. You may swords. This grief is a 2-for-1. I'll take the Lorien Revealed. So I don't think I need to grief again and take the Force of Negation. I think I'll just play a dude. And then after my opponent like brainstorms or something and improves the overall quality of their hand, then I can start looking at griefing again. Or if I just have a bunch of dead cards that I can't really cast anyway. Sure. My opponent can now swords this. You got it. Since I don't have a threat in play, I think I'm okay doing this. It's like not great value. Take the Force of Negation, reanimate the grief, and I'll just put a clock in play. The second one misses here, but I end up with a menace creature in play versus a control deck who has no active cards. That deck back-to-back removal spells a little rough here. All right. But will you top deck back-to-back-to-back removal spells? Not exactly, but that's pretty bad. So my opponent can just get a piece of equipment that they can play immediately, which is perfectly reasonable. We did not really create a window there with the griefs. I really would have just preferred another land here. And I don't think I equipped a Vampire Nighthawk here. I think I just hold this back and keep the two separate bodies. My opponent could create a very large number of creatures with Cryptic Coat. They can bounce it for 2 mana and then redeploy it for either 3 hard casting it or 2 with Stoneforge Mystic. So this can generate a large number of bodies. All right. Getting the swamp is fine here. It grows the Lashwrithe. I think I'll attack. I'm okay trading away the Lashwrithe body. The thing that I'm not okay with is like a Triumph of St. Catherine randomly ending up in play. This is fine. So we'll take out some bodies. And now I can make this massive. And it just becomes a matter of how much more removal does my opponent end up drawing. God damn it. My opponent's draws, since I had them effectively hellbent, were removal spell, or I guess like removal spell, Snapcaster, Stoneforge. Insane. Then they'll bounce the coat. If my opponent is playing like this many Snapcaster mages alongside this much white removal, it seems like they are very actively targeting these black-based decks that are looking to reanimate stuff. I do just get to create a massive body that will kill my opponent in a couple of turns and is unblockable. Like this is probably a 2-turn clock. But my opponent just gets to do Cryptic Coat nonsense now. He did not bounce it. I wonder if my opponent is like missing points of damage here. I don't know what card they have in hand. All right, no void counters yet. I hit the swamp, so this is a 2-turn clock. If my opponent draws a removal spell, they are not bouncing their Cryptic Coat for value. All right, they get 4 looks at a removal spell, which is a lot. All right, they didn't shuffle, so they found a removal spell of some kind. That's a temporary removal spell. That doesn't permanently stop the problem. They'll need like a counter spell or another removal spell next turn. I'll take some damage. Dark Ritual, obviously not what I'm looking for here. There is the Force of Will. Opponent chose not to bounce Cryptic Coat again. I'll take some damage. I will grief. I feel like that is actively unlucky. We have already seen 2 of the Force of Wills. That's the 3rd. Sure. This probably means that I'm now dead. Yep. I feel like we got quite unlucky that game. So I could do something like Fairy in respect of Snapcaster mages. I ultimately just want to become threat dense to help deal with my opponent's just absolutely massive amount of removal. So I think I am playing Fairy as a 2/2 flyer and just getting rid of Dark Ritual. I think I'm going to kind of ignore Teferi here and just play the incredibly mana efficient Snuff Out for things like Stoneforge Mystic. This is a pretty medium opening hand. I'm not like super excited about this. I have turn 2 threat, nothing turn 3, nothing turn 1. I'm not going to have things turn 1 very much of the time. I think I can do better. That's a cruel joke. Like, I can keep this and have some decent stuff for the end game and just hope to draw reasonable things to play. Lashwrithe not being a black card is brutal here. I think I need to just keep raw resources at this point rather than go to 5. I am just very disappointed about it. But I think this is going to be a tough matchup from the start, and my opening hands were just not good. All right, good. My opponent did not have Stoneforge Mystic to kind of start pulling ahead here. But I sideboarded to make my deck more threat dense, and then I missed on any sort of threat in my first couple of draws. Rough. All right. So we start here. Alright, my opponent can hide their best stuff. We are resolving. I get swords immediately. My opponent has meltdown for my Lashwrithe, which is kind of funny. I think I'm taking that, though. Oddly. At least my opponent's hand is pretty bad. The thing here is that, like, they probably have 2 good cards on top of deck. Alright, island out of there. I'm probably going to want to hard cast this, but I can think about cycling it so that I can play Lashwrithe around Spell Pierce. It's just like late enough in the game where I don't necessarily want to cycle this since it's so close to being a real body. Batter Skull, huh? Enough out does not kill that token. I think I am going to swamp cycle this and guarantee this next land. Alright, sure. I think I'm just going to make my opponent answer this. Well, that's unlucky. C'est la vie. It's now a little hard to aggro my opponent out. I can loot away my snuff out, that's not particularly good. But trading with the Batter Skull in combat is not really super favorable, since my opponent can just bounce and replay it. Sure. I'm just gonna take the hit. Alright, here we go. Alright, we're in play. This, in theory, stops the Batter Skull from attacking. I could move immediately. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to make my opponent answer the Germ token and go from there. Opponent now has 1 unknown card in hand. Could be something like a Spell Pierce, or maybe a Supreme Verdict. Alright. Sure. I think I just attack. I could grief first. But if my opponent doesn't do anything, I don't think I grief. I don't put another creature on board into, like, end of turn Brainstorm into Terminus. Yes, you may do that in my second main phase. I'll cast a grief now. It is Supreme Verdict. I just take that over Batter Skull, right? I just take that over Batter Skull. Yeah, so my opponent can, like, Prismatic Ending this token, and then I just move the Lashwrithe somewhere else. They can play Batter Skull, but I just massively outdamage and avoid the blockers. Snuff Out's weird in that once the Batter Skull germs are in play, it doesn't really do anything, but it's very good at stopping the Batter Skull getting into play in the first place, so I think I am just keeping things as is. This is not good. This is fine. I probably just get rid of 1 Lashwrithe. Could get rid of a fairy. So I play Swamp Cycle on turn 1. Turn 2, I Douthie Voidwalker. Turn 3, I Swamp Cycle. It's possible that just, like, keeping the better card results in me having a stronger hand on average, despite the fact that I might be giving up some tempo. Sure. Veil Land's doing some work and fixing my opponent's draws. And my hand's just kind of okay right now. We dodged Stoneforge Mystic on turn 2, which is kind of a huge deal. So we've got that going for us. This is just too many trolls. I still think I'll play this turn. It, like, plays into Swords to Plowshares mana, but I think playing a creature this turn is just better than cycling both trolls. Alright, it's in play. I don't expect it to stay there for long. Sure. Oh, it's Volk rather than Tundra. Maybe an indicator of Prismatic Ending. That's fine. This is probably tapped wrong. So I will go ahead and Swamp Cycle once. To get a swamp, play a swamp. I have 4th land next turn. I can go ahead and just put a new body onto the board so that I have something that's there. Or if my opponent puts, like, a Planeswalker on board. That's fine. Narset is good, but ultimately fine. My deck doesn't really draw cards, so this is just a very good draw to with selection. Prismatic Ending, solid against Lashwrithe. It's better to play Cavalry and Swamp Cycle this turn. Probably. Make my opponent use more mana on their prismatic ending and make them less able to do a follow-up play. The downside of not just jamming a Lashwrithe immediately is that my opponent could use Narset to find like a Force of Negation or Spell Pierce type card. I don't think you have to make the land drop prior to Narset as well. Sure. I am going to convert this into a swamp since I do have multiple Lashwrithes. This is 5 mana. I think I'm going to play a Lashwrithe this turn in hopes of drawing another land and being able to do 2 of these next turn. Force pitching a Dress Down. You got it. So at this point of the game, we are looking to dodge essentially a powerful win condition. Like, I don't want to run into a Triumph or a 4th Aerlingas or something like that right now. I don't, like, super mind if my opponent just, like, keeps 1-for-1ing me on removal. The Snapcaster Mage is slightly more annoying. I'll lose Exsanguinator Cavalry to Swords, and then presumably you lose Gifted Aetherborn to the Prismatic Ending, and then the board's clear. Alright, yep. Take 2. Cool. Now we play around Spell Pierce. Sure. Force of Negation is available, but they don't have it this time. Another Swords. Sure, that's the 3rd one. I can take a little bit of damage here each turn cycle. That's fine. I intentionally built this deck without Orcish Bowmaster, but this is the sort of matchup where like a Bowmaster would be insane. Like Bowmaster come in, ping one of these 2, have 2 bodies equipped to Lashwrithe is just really, really, really strong. We'll equip. This is a 2-turn clock. I absolutely cannot assume that it stays alive, but it is a 2-turn clock. Supreme Verdict. Yeah. I will just keep casting cards that I draw off the top, and hopefully they get to hit you in the face eventually. I think everything in my deck has at least 2 power, so every creature is just a 2-turn clock. Sure. Alright, that's the last Swords to Plowshares, so it's just Snapcaster Mages for them from here. Keep going. Dudes hanging out, having a good time with Lashwrithe. Just living in the moment. Ending gets this one. Reanimate. Reanimate, target Snapcaster Mage. Snapcaster Mage, target Reanimate. Reanimate, target Troll or Vampire Nighthawk. That's really cute. Do I want to open myself up to Teferi Bounce Snapcaster Mage, though? The answer is probably no. So I think I am not going to do the cute line here. And, like, the 6 life that I lose is just absolutely whatever at this point. Sure. Batterskull is not enough here. Batterskull doesn't block this. Batterskull doesn't outlife link this. Ooh. I'm going to ignore the Narset and just kill my opponent. They are at 5. I'm going to put a 2nd lethal card in play. Let's get a neutral. And I guess move the Lashwrithe. Alright. My opponent needs to find some sort of like Terminus or Supreme Verdict style card. Well, they didn't shuffle. Okay. That Ponder shuffles. Did you find a verdict? Brainstorm. I guess there's not a land drop yet. So they will need a blue or white land plus Supreme Verdict at this point, or alternatively another Brainstorm plus a Terminus. We have gotten the GGs there. That was quite tight. Alrighty. We are going to grief people. We are going to do the scam thing. I think I'm getting rid of the Dark Ritual here to do this. My opponent has mulliganed once already, so this is probably going to be a bit of a beating. Alright, my opponent is some sort of like painter-style deck. I think I'm going to take them off of Karn and Thoughtcast here and leave them with the Grindstone. Like, it sucks if they top deck Painter, but these 2 cards help my opponent formulate a game plan that is much stronger than, hey, hope I draw Painter. Sure. There we go. And then I am going to need another land drop next turn to kind of stay hyper competitive in terms of a clock. Sure. It started to pay for something and then didn't. It could just be like end of turn, grindstone, target themselves. We'll swamp cycle here and call it a turn. They did not. Pay 2 life to grindstone themselves. That's fine. I do not have the Bowmaster to punish this, as it is not in my deck. This is probably what they tried to cast last turn and could not. Sure. So my Menace body gets to get in there for 3 more. My opponent is at 9. I think I'm playing this one. I don't remember if I said this out loud yet, but I need to race the Shadow Spear that's coming. Ancient Tomb is probably not what my opponent is looking for here. That's a swamp. How big is this construct token? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. So if I put this on Grief and my opponent double blocks, I can kill both. That seems fine. Oh, that's very good. Now my Grief can't really attack, so I can only attack with Nighthawk. Ooh, I might lose this one. So it's 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7-ish in terms of size. I can maybe still out damage it, but my draws have to be good. Sure. This is so much life. Where is my stuff out? All right, I take 11. The trample's rough here. I think everybody is hanging back for right now, as I am in imminent danger of dying. Podcast is great. Every artifact here is super relevant. Oh, I just die. I will concede to the combo. And it's fine, like, I feel accurate in my original assessment of, like, my opponent randomly drawing Painter is not worth keeping this around. Like, we were already going to die to this stuff unless I draw, like, a Lashwrithe very quickly. Alright, Null Rods and Powder Kegs are great here. Shoulder's Edict is okay. Snuff Outs are okay. The issue with Snuff Out in this particular matchup is that if my opponent plays around it by putting Painter on black, the card becomes very awkward. But it's still a very strong tempo play. I think I want these. I don't think I want these on the play. And I think I'm going to keep some of these despite the fact that I am bringing in Null Rod. And I think I'll keep 2 Edicts, but I don't think I want the full 4. Yeah. I think this Dark Ritual could be used for Exsanguinator Cavalry or turn 2 Grief reasonably. My opponent tanked on their opening hand for a long time. I think I want to turn 2 Grief. Just turn 2 Dark Ritual Grief, follow up with this, follow up with this. Like, I think that is going to be a much stronger curve as a whole than just going in on this immediately. I don't think I'm supposed to, like, mulligan looking for Null Rod and Powder Keg more aggressively or anything like that either. I'm hoping to just, like, get one of my opponent's primary, like, payoff cards from their hand after they play out a bunch of artifact mana on turn 1. Plus, this also just does give me a draw to wait to see if I, oh god, draw Reanimate my Kingdom for Null Rod off the top. Damn. Dark Ritual. Hardcast the Grief. Metallic Rebuke's annoying. I think I'm most scared of Karn's ability to tutor for something like an Ensnaring Bridge. I'm really not equipped to beat something like that. So I'm guessing I'm hoping that my Cavalry just gets countered by Metallic Rebuke so that I can resolve the Lashwrithe a little bit later. That Reanimate is a little late here. It's not to say that it'll do nothing this game, as it might end up bringing back my Exsanguinator Cavalry. But this is very much not what I'm hoping for right now. Alright, good. There goes Metallic Rebuke. You can bobble me. Saga's scary. My opponent's lands are artifact lands, and they just, like, control a bunch of artifacts beyond that. Sure, sure, sure. That's annoying. I'll take a little damage here. I'm at 18. I can put my opponent on a 3-turn clock by just playing Lashwrithe and equipping. That beat Shadow Spear. So I attack for 7, put them to 10. Urza Saga ticks up to 2. I attack them for 7 or 8. I think this gives me a better chance of winning than just playing Dalthy Voidwalker as it adds 4 damage immediately. And maybe scales up from there. My own life total is a little dubious as well. Alright. Sure. That turns some of my cards like Reanimate back on. I wonder if my opponent was supposed to respond to the Lashwrithe cast with drawing a card if they were going to draw a card. Emery? Oh, Haywire Might. That's a random punish for not playing out Dalthy Voidwalker. I guess I can reanimate their Haywire Might? Don't have the correct colors of mana to do some of the things that I would like to do here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If my opponent blocks with Thought Monitor and Urza's Saga token, do I want Thought Monitor in graveyard so that I can reanimate Thought Monitor? Or do I just want to take Haywire Might out of their graveyard so that they can't get rid of my Lashwrithe? Game got very tough all of a sudden. I think I want to reanimate Thought Monitor and get looks at Null Rod or Powder Keg. Sure. Alright, so we're going to kill the Thought Monitor here. Sign the damage like that. This Construct token is going to be 1 away from dead. I will now swing for the fences here and reanimate this. Draw 2. Grief and Vampire Nighthawk. So I can go 3, 4, 5, play Dalthy Voidwalker and Vampire Nighthawk. Okay. So this will be a 6, 7, 8, 9. If I take 2 damage, I am at 5. Vampire Nighthawk blocks for 7 of that, so that's good. I am fine to... there's just fucking Haywire Might. Fuck. I guess it's 10 with trample. Not 9. Yeah, I think I'm dead if my opponent sees the line, so I think I'm just going to ignore it. So we'll Nighthawk and Lashwrithe equip there. Going to 3. But I think I'm dead. Alright, there's the first part. Do you see Emery Haywire Might remove Lashwrithe equip? Sure. Yep. Oh, you can target Aether Spellbomb, and that does the same thing. Sure. Then I will concede. GG's. I don't really love this opening hand. I have a turn 2 and a turn 4 play, both of which are under format power levels. I think I fish a little bit. This is turn 1, Exsanguinator Cavalry. I could grief first and try to have my opponent, try to have this hand go all the way. Like grief, pitch, say Snuff Out, put Vampire Nighthawk back in my deck. Maybe put Snuff Out back in my deck. Sure. So we need Cavalry to go all the way here. Yikes. I have to take Terminus. See if my opponent wants to Force of Negation this Dark Ritual. Oh, they don't. Fuck yeah. I still think my opponent is going to be very favored. Like, their mana base is showing that they are going to be like a Beans deck list. They probably have some combination of Swords to Plowshares, Prismatic Ending, Leyline Binding. Life is going to be rough. Ascend in. I don't think I blood token immediately. I do want more land. Sure. This is fine. I basically just have to snap concede, do a removal spell though. So, like, people talk about how good grief is, but I think this league has been a good illustration of like the fact when you don't draw grief alongside reanimate is like it's just a card. Like, it is a very reasonable thing to hard cast later on in a game. It is a very powerful card, but just shoving it alongside whatever isn't necessarily going to get the job done. Let's loot away the Dark Ritual. Alright. I will loot away one of these now. If we hit a Reanimate, make the grief actually look good. Nope. Random Triumph. Or no, not random. They brainstormed it. I have Menace, so they can't block this immediately. I've got that going for me. I know one of my snuff outs is currently on the bottom of my deck. I need to, man, this is awkward. I need to cast it on my opponent's turn because I know about Force of Negation, but like they're going to have that mana open. All right. So let's scale up. I think I just loot on my own turn. If I find Snuff Out, I can Snuff Out plus Edict. No. All right, which is more likely? Like, how do I do this? Is my opponent ever gonna like tap out? Maybe I can find a spot. Like maybe they play some beans or something. Holy shit. Okay, got lucky. Please sacrifice a non-token creature for me. Played around it. Aha. The slightly awkward thing here is that like my opponent might then like re-find it with Brainstorm and set it up again. But I don't need much time. Now, if they fetch, then the Triumph is not in their top handful of cards anymore. Send it. Alright. We needed the cavalry to go all the way, and it got close. We needed 2 more attack steps, though. Sure, that's very bad. And at some point in the next few draws, we are also just going to see the Triumph come back. All right. We got a Lorien revealed for our trouble, which is really good. The issue is that this is just going to eat me alive, and beans are happening. All right, they are shuffling, so the Triumphs are randomly back in the deck. Is it Marktide? Oh, it's 4th Aerlingas. At this point, despite the fact that I'm at 34 life, I probably just don't get there through this amount of raw card advantage. Like, they're the Monarch, they have the beans, and they have Uro. I'll play this card. If I get to attack and become the Monarch, like, we can talk. But assuming that this creature is answered or otherwise does not connect in combat, I don't think I'm competitive anymore. Yeah, let's respect our time here. So what do I want in terms of sideboard cards? Pile of white removal, quite good against the Reanimate stuff here. I think I'm more interested in Snuff Out than Sheoldred's Edict. I think just the ability to take out a Triumph mid-combat matters a lot. I can play Fairy for Uro. It's probably just as good as these. It's slightly less aggressive. Okay. This is not quite what I want my hands to look like here. The white removal just means that I don't get to reanimate this. And I don't think I am supposed to, like, put a fairy into play on turn 1 as well. I think that's just a bad use of my resources. I think I'm going to end up looting away a lot of the stuff from my hand. Oh, hey. That is a good Magic the Gathering card. Send it. Cool, cool. We'll Troll Cycle. And then attempt the Reanimate. Okay. So the Troll's in play. My opponent presumably just has another Swords here. If they are letting this one come into play, but getting rid of the Cavalry. Sure. Or it could be a Leyline Binding that they're going to use in a minute. Same overall effect. This gets in for 6. And I can decide if I want to Blood Token loot or just play a creature. I think I am just going to play a mediocre creature here in respect of this getting removed immediately. It doesn't sound all that impressive when I say it this way, but like this is still a 6-turn clock. And a 6-turn clock is a lot better than the 0-turn clock I would have if I had nothing in play. Not really looking for more swamps right now. Show me your removal spell for the Troll. There it is. Opponent's at 9. I think I loot away the Dark Ritual here. Okay. That's a real card. I can't cast it this turn, but I'm perfectly happy to have that. All right. Sure. That's a trop. So I think I'm just attacking for 2 and then playing the Lashwrithe rather than going for 7 points of damage this turn. I think it's pretty likely that the Lashwrithe is not resolving anyway. All right, we're in play. That's a start. That's fine. Sure. I don't mind recasting. There needs to be a force effect or my opponent is dead on board. Show it to me. All right, they had it. I think I am going to take a turn off and attack this. My opponent still has 5 cards in hand. I don't think this is just going to get there in 3 attack steps. So I want to get rid of the Planeswalker that might end up bouncing a lethal Lashwrithe or Troll later on. Oh boy. Well, cast. Do I go for it? I've seen 2 swords used. I've seen, 0 leyline bindings used? I think I'm a coward. In which case I should have not played this pre-combat for exactly this reason. Some portion of the time this hits this instead. Oh, sure. Not the way I thought that was going. Oh my god. In good news, my opponent has to discard a card. I mean, yeah. Cast. Oh, maybe I'm not supposed to do this. Maybe this just opens up Force of Will draw into white removal. Should have thought about that for just a touch longer. I was thinking about like getting rid of some sort of flash creature that could block mid-combat, but I have Snuff Out for that anyway, so I think I just messed that up. Not that I think my opponent is dead either way when they are just like discarding, but I think I did that poorly. Oh no, what is this? Oh, it's probably just the Uro coming back. Sure, I'll snuff that out. And I think my life total is largely irrelevant, so this seems fine. My opponent's discarding cards, which means they don't have lands and their hand is just full of gas. If there's a Mystic Sanctuary, this is a pretty okay time to put a Lorien Revealed back on top of deck. Oh, they're just going for Force of Will. I guess Force of Will cantrips 3 times. I guess they don't need more cards. Yeah, I like that better. You know, let's just move on. All right, I've got a pretty mediocre hand here. I think I'm just going to mulligan this one. I am a mana source away from this hand being the absolute nuts. And we'll keep this one on 5. Get rid of this, get rid of one of these probably. And we're hoping a troll goes the distance here. We've already seen how this goes. The raw endgame card advantage of this deck is a real problem. The Emery didn't hit particularly well, but they've still got a bobble. Yep, so you can look at that card and I'll end up shuffling. Pick up a swamp. Hope my opponent does not have a force effect for this Reanimate. Oh, that's a weird draw. I think taking my opponent off of this Emery bobble engine is strong enough that I just do this now rather than jamming my real threat. Because if my opponent kept their hand on the strength of Emery bobble, then I might sort of make their next few turns very awkward. So they get 1 redraw off of this instead of, essentially infinite. That's fine. Okay, opponent is not immediately cracking the bobble. I'll send in for my unblockable damage. We did not get counterspelled last turn, so here's hoping that it does not happen this turn. Fantastic. Bobble was not cracked. That might be indicative of something like a Kappa Cannoneer or a need for Metalcraft or like Thought Casts and Thought Monitors. Yeah. Artifact count is 4. The opponent's back up to 7 cards, but is on a 2-turn clock. That's pretty hard to deal with. Next turn, Ancient Tomb Painter Activate kills me. Grief to check for stuff is pretty good. It's basically just Painter combo that kills us at this point. I think we are going to out-damage most of the fair stuff that my opponent can do. Alright, there's 8. Let's Grief getting rid of a Nighthawk. Okay, there's the Painter that was going to kill us. We'll take that. Yep. I'll play an extra creature. I don't think it super matters. I guess my opponent would have needed a little bit more mana. Right, because they just had a regular land in hand, not the soul land. They can do a second thought cast here. They need to draw into quite a bit of fast mana to get back to something that kills me. I guess drawing like an Otawara could be interesting. Keeps my opponent alive for another turn at least. Alright. I think before I said I wanted these, I think I was doing Snuff Out for tempo-based reasons. I think I decided I liked Evasion and got rid of those. and then trimmed one of those or something like that. All right, I have Troll into Reanimate with a second Reanimate to try again. This is perfectly fine. Painter is fine. We'll see if my opponent knows to like put it on black to play around Snuff Out. If they do, I probably change my sideboarding for the next game. Okay, they don't. Grief? Are we doing that instead? I guess I don't have to decide immediately. In like Grief, pitch a Nighthawk. I guess I can do both, right? I'll take the Grindstone. I will reanimate the Grief now. Take another one of these. I'll take the Dismember. And then next turn I'll Troll and reanimate. And the hope that is between these two very aggressive creatures and my opponent's Ancient Tomb that I can just kind of quickly go the distance before the Thoughtcast type cards start mattering. Voidwalker is kind of whatever. Send in with Grief for 3. Opponent's at 15. Swamp Cycle. And fire off the Reanimate. A Metallic Rebuke. That costs my opponent 3 life. So while I would prefer a Troll, costing my opponent 3 life while I have a 3 power clock in play is like super relevant. There's 3 more life. I Dismember. My opponent is at 7 with 2 currently uncastable cards in hand. And I'm about to drop another clock. This is only a boost to 4 mana. I think I'm just going to play Douthie Voidwalker. The Shadow's very good here. And then if I draw, maybe even if I don't draw, I might just like jam it Lashwrithe for 2 additional points of damage next turn and make it so that Ancient Tomb becomes more awkward. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, I am good with this. The 4 mana attempt Lashwrithe. We've already seen 2 Dismembers as well, so this is like very likely to just work. This hits my opponent for 6, shutting off Ancient Tomb completely and shutting off the blue mana from this. This also shuts off Force of Will. So the whole Grief Reanimate thing guts us there in that final round, but we do put up a negative record. So how do we feel at the end of the league? Can you just like throw Grief, Reanimate, Troll, and everything and it's just absolutely good? No, absolutely not. And I kind of knew that from the beginning, which was the whole point of making this video. Grief and Reanimate is a thing that you can do in Legacy, and it is a very, very powerful thing. One of the better things to be doing, but every card that you run in your deck that is not black is a card that's not going to pitch to Grief. And so like we ran into our Lashwrithe not being pitchable in this league, and like let's say you're a blue-black like scam Reanimator deck. You have a whole bunch of cantrips, Murktide Regents, whatever, that are not going to pitch to your Grief. So in order for your Griefs to really just absolutely be insane and do the thing, you need the Grief in the opening hand, you need the black card in the opening hand, you need the Reanimate in the opening hand, and you need a black producing land. It is very easy to remember all of these insane Grief, Reanimate, Grief non-games that are created, but in reality, it is requiring 4 cards to line up in order for you to kind of do just the absolute crazy things that it is capable of. And in this league, I ran a bunch of cards that were below Legacy power level. And you can't just jam Grief into just any deck and expect it to just absolutely go all the way and be absolutely insane. It was just a good thing that was a part of this deck. But you have to surround Grief with a pile of very good cards in order for it to start feeling anywhere near oppressive at all. So this was a very fun league. And if you're kind of interested in some more nuanced discussion of like, hey, you know, what does this actually look at the higher power levels of competitive play, check out one of my more recent episodes of the Eternal Glory podcast, where we really deep dive Grief and Bowmasters. And the conclusion from me and both of my co-hosts is that like Grief is fine for the time being. But, you know, if there is a card that is worth discussing bans for in Legacy, it is Grief. But none of us think it's there yet. I think there's a lot of room for experimentation. And in this league, we saw a lot of white Swords to Plowshares based control. And if you are not just killing these Griefs and trading with them in combat, and like they don't get to come back with your Reanimates and Animate Deads, you mitigate some of the power of those decks in just the deck building stage itself. So I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. And if you find yourself needing some cards, please consider checking out toamagic.com and using promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your order. Folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya.